At the sound of our steps, he glanced around and sprang to his feet with a cry of pleasure. "I found it! I found it!" he shouted to my companion, running towards us with a test tube in his hand. "I have found a reagent which is precipitated by hemoglobin, and by nothing else." Had he discovered a gold mine, greater delight could not have shone upon his features. "Dr. Watson, Mr. Sherlock Holmes," said Sanford, introducing us. "How are you?" he said cordially, gripping my hand with such strength for which I should hardly have given him credit. "You have been to Afghanistan, I perceive." "How on earth could you know that?" I asked in astonishment. "Never mind," he said, chuckling to himself. "The question now is about hemoglobin. No doubt you see the significance of this discovery of mine." It was on a November day in 1887 in which Sherlock Holmes was introduced to the world in A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It was in the Christmas edition of Beaton's Annual that year, and it would forever change the world of forensic science, both in the literary field, but also in the real world. The legendary Sherlock Holmes changed the public's perspective of how science can fight and solve crime, and we would see that for the following century to come. My name is Zack Kowalski. I'm a real-life crime scene detective, and I use science to solve crimes. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, forensic science, along with my helpful compadre over here, Bonesworth. So what is forensic science? Well, the word forensis comes from Latin and meaning to debate within a public forum. Today, forensic science is science that is used in the pursuit or means within the public forum of court. So forensic science is simply the application of different scientific disciplines for the needs of a civil or criminal court. The American Academy of Forensic Science has a great description in that forensic scientists may be involved anytime an objective scientific analysis is needed to find the truth and to seek justice within legal proceedings. See, forensic scientists can be out in the field collecting physical evidence like at a crime scene, or they can be within a lab and be toxicologists or DNA analysts or firearms examiners. It's that symbiotic relationship of being able to collect all kinds of data of evidence and then synthesize it, to test it, to analyze it, and understand its meaning within the overall larger context of an inquiry, of a crime scene, right? What does that fingerprint mean? Who does this DNA belong to? These are all questions that forensic science seeks to answer. What's cool about forensic science is that it includes so many different scientific disciplines. Whether you like examining bugs in forensic entomology, or you love weather, which I'm personally a total weather nerd, love my weather channel, but there are forensic meteorologists, because at times there are questions within both civil and criminal cases that may require to understand the atmosphere. So that's where a forensic meteorologist comes into play. Science can help in so many different forms that forensic science is just using that science to answer those questions in cases. So how long has forensic science been around? Well, Sherlock Holmes was published in 1887. But really, the application of science in criminal investigations has been around for thousands of years. In the 1970s, an archaeological expedition uncovered bamboo shoots in the area of Qin in China. It was on these bamboo shoots were recordings of death investigations from 2,000 years ago. And in these records, they're doing the same type of death investigations in a methodical process that we do today. They recorded the orientation of the body. They describe bloodstains and footprints, all things that we do today. So for 2 millennia, the overall methodology of investigating a crime hasn't really changed. It is technology that has really evolved through written record and then technological innovation. As we fast forward, we get to the 2nd century and how the Romans used bloodstains and shoe prints, and they talk about it within a variety of their different court proceedings. One specific is the Roman jurist Quintilian, who describes the death investigation involving a blind son and his mother and the deceased father, and how there are these bloody handprints along the wall, and how originally it was believed that the blind son was the suspect, but it was uncovered based off of the bloodstains that the mother had committed the murder. That's pretty cool. That's the 2nd century. That's 1800 years ago. But then we can fast forward to 1248, to the Chinese text, The Washing Away of Wrongs, or let me try my terrible pronunciation, Zi Wan Lu. I'm incredibly sorry if I offended anybody with that. But The Washing Away of Wrongs was one of the first modern texts of forensic pathology. It laid out principles of how to examine decedents and crime scenes. Principles that we still use today. Forensic science kind of becomes a sleeping giant for the next few centuries, and it's not until the mid-19th century that we really start seeing active growth in the subdiscipline. We see the development of personal identification with fingerprints with Bertillon and Francis Galton and Sir Richard Henry. We see how Edward Petrowski in Poland modernizes bloodstain pattern analysis and research by looking at bloodstains at scenes and by beating rabbits with mallets and examining those stain patterns. I don't endorse beating rabbits with mallets. PETA, please don't come after me. But even in 1835, Scotland Yard does the first bullet examination and gets a successful prosecution over it. So really, in the mid-19th century, we see this explosion in research and use of science in the application of crime analysis and in crime scene investigations. The past 200 years has seen an incredible evolution in forensic sciences, from the simple physical examinations of the mid-19th century to today's advanced trace DNA analysis. The future is incredibly bright and incredibly exciting. So how does forensic science actually help real-life casework? Well, consider these 3 pretty major cases from the past century. The first notable case is the Lindbergh kidnapping in 1932. The 20-month-old son of aviator Charles Lindbergh was kidnapped from the family home in New Jersey. The case gained immense attention, being termed the crime of the century. The role of forensic science was that forensic analysis was crucial in the case. The most significant piece of evidence was a homemade ladder used in the kidnapping. Experts examined the wood and tool marks, which eventually led them to Bruno Richard Hauptmann. Additionally, forensic handwriting analysts played a role in examining the ransom notes. Hauptmann was eventually convicted and executed. Fast forward to the 1970s and the case of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was a notorious serial killer. He was a notorious serial killer who abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered numerous young women across several states during the 70s. Forensic science was critical in connecting Bundy to several crimes. Bite mark analysis became a key piece of evidence, with Bundy's teeth being matched to bite marks found on one of the victims, Lisa Levy. Additionally, hair and fiber analysis linked him to many other crime scenes. The outcome was that Bundy was convicted in Florida for the murders of Levy and another woman. He was sentenced to death and later confessed to numerous other murders before his execution in 1989. Now, at this point, I should note, bite mark analysis has been debunked as kind of being junk science. There are too many variables that go into play when you're examining known dental records to a bite mark on tissue. Tissue is pliable, it can move, and it is very much subjective. In 2015, the President's PCAST report on, that's the Presidential Committee on Science and Technology, and they did an assessment on forensic science, and they called out bite mark analysis, and most of the discipline agrees. Bite mark analysis is not entirely reliable. So I just kind of want to put that as a little slip in there, that over the course of this show, we will always kind of talk about good science and bad science. Bite mark analysis, bad science. Last case that we'll talk about is the Green River Killer case, starting in 1982. Now, Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, was responsible for the murders of numerous women in Washington state. His first victims were discovered in the Green River, leading to the moniker. Forensic science led to the breakthrough in the case, which was at the advent of advanced DNA testing techniques. Early in the investigation, fibers and paint particles were collected from the victims. But it wasn't until much later that DNA technology had advanced enough to provide conclusive evidence. In 2001, DNA samples from the victims were matched to Ridgway. Ridgway was ultimately arrested in 2001 and initially charged with 4 counts of murder. He eventually pled guilty to 48 counts of murder in exchange for a sentence of life imprisonment without parole, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. The Green River Killer case is a great example of how technology and forensic science continues to evolve, and how even after decades, science can still go back and help solve cold case crimes. That's the cool thing about forensic science and why I've spent the past 15 years of my career in it, is you're using science to solve mysteries, to catch bad guys, to solve crime, to help the community, and it's incredibly rewarding. If you enjoyed today's episode, then hit the like button. Comment down below, it really does help a small channel like ours. Bonesworth and I really appreciate it, and we would love to hear your feedback, or if you have ideas for more content. Thank you so much for exploring with us today. I'm Detective Zack, this is Bonesworth, and until next time, stay curious.